Welcome back. Another brand new episode of the Asylum Fantasy Sports Show. Noah, proud member of the Full-Time Fantasy Podcast Network. Find us and many more fantastic fantasy podcasts at fulltimefantasy.com, on Twitter at fulltimefantasy. And, of course, you want to follow your boys at Asylum Football on Twitter, asylumfootball@gmail.com, not .com, but .com, and asylumfantasysports.com on the interwebs.
That's right. We are Fleeger and Briggs. This is the Asylum Sports Show. Welcome to the Full-Time Fantasy Podcast Network. Like Rick said, you can find us anywhere. I don't care what mode you prefer.
You can't hide from Full-Time Fantasy.
iHeartRadio, we're there, pal. iTunes, we're there. Spreaker, we're there. What a CastBox is even there.
YouTube.
Yeah, YouTube.
You name it.
Yeah, do it.
You can't hide from your boys.
But for God's sakes, get on there, listen to us, give us a rating.
Something.
Comments. Doesn't matter where. Just give us a 5-star rating and then bash us with the comments. But give us a good rating, the thumbs up, all that kind of good stuff. Then you can bash us.
Yeah.
We don't care.
Yeah.
But
and do this: subscribe, then unsubscribe, then subscribe again. Let's keep those subscriber
we can
numbers
keep doing
up.
that.
Keep doing that. And hey, listen, draft season's coming up, right? So you can keep drafting with Debbie from accounting if you want to, and winning your $9.97, off of easy money in your 10-team touchdown only league. Or you could head over to fulltimefantasy.com, check out all the FFWC season-long fantasy contests, beat the expert leagues, the free mock draft world championship, $35 starter leagues for you skinflints out there, and, of course, the $299 online championship and the Dynasty World Championships and the Fantasy Football World Championships in Las Vegas. Leave Debbie and accounting alone. Go out and play against some real competition and win you some real money. Find all of that over at fulltimefantasy.com. So, Rick, it's time to wrap up the series finally. 2 divisions left, and this here NFL. In the NFC, we're going south. We're going to go west, young man. Tell you everything you need to know.
That's right. Hey, you know what? Summer's in full swing. The 4th of July. I hope you had a good one there, Rick. And, people growing their gardens, mowing grass and everything.
God, I hate mowing grass.
I know. And, I know you're not a vegetable kind of guy. You like meat and potatoes, basically. That's about it.
Corn.
I
like corn.
Okay. But I saw a very interesting fact about bell peppers.
Bell pepper. Which ones are those? The yellow ones?
Peppers. Well, I mean, they're yellow,
just
orange.
a regular pepper. All right.
Okay. Did you know that, in fact, I'm just going to start with this one sentence. There is no such thing as a green bell pepper variety.
And why are they all green?
Those are. I'm glad you asked me, Rick.
It's like we scripted this.
Yes. Those are prematurely picked bell peppers of any variety, which means orange, red, yellow, even the purple kind. They're all green.
I have noticed if you let the green ones sit too long, they turn orange.
Yeah. And
I thought orange meant they were rotten.
No. This actually means that they have absorbed all the nutrients and the sugars from the plant, and they're fully ripe, and they're much better for you. They're sweeter, and I didn't even know this. I thought that was a fascinating fact. I mean, there's no such thing as a green bell pepper variety. I was stunned.
Fascinating might be a reach.
I was stunned. Yeah. I mean that's jaw-dropping.
Well, again, that might be a bit of an overstatement, but
I thought it was interesting, though. It's pretty cool.
All right, so it seems like a pretty natural segue then, Rick, right into the Atlanta Falcons.
Well, yeah. I mean, obviously, Matt Ryan is a pepperhead, which we've known for years.
All right.
Yeah, he loves his bell peppers, especially the red ones. So,
okay, so he knew. So you're implying that Matt Ryan knew about all this.
Look, here's a guy, second leading fantasy scoring quarterback last year behind only that ridiculous year of Pat Mahomes. You're fine with Matt Ryan as your quarterback. And it amazes me that this guy gets passed over year after year.
And always the 10th.
By a multitude of quarterbacks.
Always the 10th quarterback taken.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Always. Don't understand. I end up owning a lot of Matt Ryan because I wait so long on my quarterbacks. And you're better than fine with Matt Ryan. You are in good shape. You know what's interesting about this Falcons team, Rick? Talked about all these other divisions so far. So much upheaval, so much change. There ain't really nothing changed with the Atlanta Falcons. I think we can know just what to expect from everybody, right? I don't even know how much time we have to spend on this team.
Well, really, the only one – there's a couple of interesting points. How much – I'm thinking Calvin Ridley takes over the second spot from Sanu.
I think so, yeah.
Okay. How much of a jump do you see Calvin Ridley taking, and conversely, how much of a setback do you see Mohamed Sanu taking? Because Sanu was always one of those kind of guys you like having on your roster. Throw him in a bye week. He's going to have his 3 to 5 catches.
Second or third flex kind of guy. I think Calvin Ridley, I'm going to own him as a wide receiver 3. Does he have the potential to get to a low-end 2? Maybe. I mean, if he keeps putting up those types of touchdown numbers, it's hard to argue against him. You know, Sanu's still going to get his touches. Justin Hardy's still going to get his touches. Sanu's always been kind of an afterthought to me. He was just kind of a nice luxury to have.
Obviously. Right,
I think Calvin Ridley outperforms that, if that means anything. I don't know if that helps anybody, if that means anything.
I guess more my question is, Ridley, how much more does he step up? How much more fantasy relevant is he now that he's really, carved out his spot now in the lineup?
Top tier 3. I guess, the top of the wide receiver 3s, I think with a ceiling into the 2s, know, quite possibly. We have Julio Jones. We certainly know what he's going to be.
Jones. Another big question for me is Devonta Freeman.
See, that's where I don't have a question. That's where I am downright giddy. Yeah, you get the competition out of town, and you're down to competing for carries with Ito Smith and Kenyon Barner. And then my boy from Pitt, who I hope makes the squad, Quadri Olison, somebody I'll be rooting hard for. It's Devonta Freeman's show. This has got double-digit touchdowns written all over it. If he stays healthy, Devonta Freeman is going to be one of the biggest values for fantasy running backs this season. All over Freeman, I am. All over him.
All word out. I mean, he looks like his old self. And that's nothing but good things when it comes to the Atlanta Falcons. He never was a huge attempt guy. Probably low 2s. They had like 265 and 15, 227 attempts in 16, 196 and 17. But he's a mid-4 average per carry, which I like.
He's a touchdown hawk. And lest you forget, Tevin Coleman gone. He is gone.
Right, exactly.
How much? We saw Ito Smith get some carries last year. But
and Freeman can catch the football, too.
Right.
In his own right.
And how much, honestly, how much work does a Ito Smith take away from a Devonta Freeman versus what a Tevin Coleman did? I think it's not even close.
I think, I point well taken. If Ito Smith is taking work away from Tevin Coleman, and we've talked about Tevin Coleman for years on this show. Always the expectations, but never the delivery. Kind of a Tavon Austin type of guy. That's why I'm not buying any of this hype. People are going bananas over him out in San Francisco. Look, he's with Jerick McKinnon and Matt Breida out there.
It's real crowd. I wish he hadn't gone to San Francisco. I wanted him to just go somewhere where he was going to compete for a big majority of the carries, and he didn't.
No, exactly. But, no, I'm with you. Devonta Freeman should be high on your draft list. No question about that.
Yeah, you look back to 2015, you talk about, Tevin Coleman getting a lot of the receptions when they were running together. You throw last year out, Freeman missed most of the year. Go back to 2015 where he had 265 carries, added 73 touchdowns onto it.
Receptions.
What I say.
Touchdowns.
That'd have been an awesome season.
That'd be a great year.
I'd like to watch that. 73 receptions, yes. 14 total touchdowns, 13 total touchdowns the year after that, 2017, where he dipped below 200 carries, only 36 receptions, and only 8 total TDs. you got Coleman out of town. I have no fear of Ito Smith. I think, if he's healthy, I think Devonta Freeman looks more like the 20, maybe not 15, maybe the 2016 version of himself. 225 plus carries, 50, 60 receptions. I don't think there's any question he has double-digit touchdowns. You look at what Tevin Coleman did in his stead. You look at the numbers they put up combined together. It seems like, and we always talk about it every year, right, how few touchdowns Julio Jones scores. It seems like Julio Jones gets them down inside the 5, and then they want him off the field as soon as possible, and they're going to turn around and hand it off 4 times. Freeman's a guy, it's not like you're getting him at a value, but I think a value for what he's going to produce. This is a guy got top 10 potential written all over him.
I think so, too. I agree 100%. I mean, I'm looking at just looking at, you talking about the Ito Smith. I mean, just head and shoulders. He played 14 games last year. He had 0 20-plus yard rushes.
That's not very many.
No. I mean, it's 0.
Yeah, that's not a lot.
No.
I'm not a math major. But
but if you go back to Devonta Freeman, excluding last year, of course, he had 6 20-plus runs in 15. He had 7 in 16. And he had 5 in 17. And he averaged about 4.6 yards a carry as opposed to Ito Smith's 3-something.
Right.
So, I mean, it's just so much. He's not going to take time away from Devonta Freeman. Simple as that.
Yeah, I'm rooting for Quadriolus and my guy.
There's your guy.
My Pitt Panther. I'm hoping he makes the squad and finds the end zone a couple of times.
But look, this is a high-scoring offense. If you're teetering between people, say like a Calvin Ridley or I don't know. Say like a D.D. Westbrook on Jacksonville, who's basically a wide receiver 1 on that team.
Right.
Go with the high-scoring offense, all you young players out there. If they're scoring, chances are your guy's going to get some of that.
Right. And Austin Hooper, I think he's kind of the last piece to sort of talk about there, coming off a 70-catch season, only 4 touchdowns. I'd have thought he'd have had better touchdown numbers. I was surprised to see it was that low, and it seems to kind of be a consensus to sort of take that next step forward. That I don't know, but in what appears to, from a fantasy standpoint, to be a tight end starved type of season, if he could just repeat 2018, Austin Hooper is a guy you're going to be targeting, and you don't have to pay that Travis Kelce, Zach Ertz, who am I blanking on here?
Kittle
type of price tag on. You can wait 4 or 5 rounds, grab Austin Hooper, hope he gets it to 80 or 85.
I don't know
if he's going to. That's the only key. But
would you be heartbroken if he went for 7,600 and 4 touches again the price you're going to pay for him?
I think you're fine. I mean, with Devonta Freeman there, I think that basically helps Hooper. I just
Can't
think
hurt him.
Atlanta is back offensively, no doubt about that. I mean, this should be an interesting division. We talked about the AFC North last week. I think this one's going to be very interesting as well.
Well, good luck ever predicting this one. It's always worst to first every single year,
but it doesn't matter in fantasy. Is what I'm talking about.
Huge numbers.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
All right, let's go up to where I may or may not be actually right now, although we never pre-record shows. They're always live.
No.
Let's go to Carolina, Rick, and talk about the Panthers.
Look, Christian McCaffrey is a top 3 running back. Simple as that, especially in PPR. He's could be the number 1, no doubt about it. Questions to me, DJ Moore and Curtis Samuel. That is, I mean, we talked, you just think a couple years ago you had Calvin Benjamin and Devin Funchess. And man, this is a whole new cast of characters for Cam Newton. I mean, he's going to be getting, hopefully, Greg Olsen back.
Right.
But how high or low are you on these two guys, DJ Moore and Curtis Samuel?
Both very interesting, right? Both guys the draftniks just love, and kind of makes me naturally fade them a little bit just because you know how I think I made it pretty clear how I feel about that whole process. Look, like what I saw out of them, last season, the potential to put up some numbers. But you said something pretty interesting when you talk about Kelvin Benjamin and Devin Funchess. These are two guys, kind of the sky's the limit type of guys. And I think Moore and Samuel sort of fit into that same category, right? It's something about Carolina. It's something about Cam Newton. It's something about the way they run their offense. I don't see a 100-catch guy, and say for bringing in an Antonio Brown, and even then you just wonder. I don't want to say this is a negative towards Cam Newton or towards the Carolina Panthers. That just isn't who they are, right? I think Moore's going to be I think he's a wide receiver 3. Samuel kind of in that same boat. Most of this is going to – look, we talk about it all the time. Cam Newton's options, and that may flip now. Cam Newton's options now are McCaffrey, Newton, Olsen, Newton, then maybe one of the wide receivers. Right? I mean, this is who they are.
That's Cam Newton. You're right. And you know what?
It works.
It works as long as Cam Newton isn't banged up, destroyed.
Well,
and
right.
That's the problem with a guy like Cam Newton. We talked about this for forever. Ben Roethlisberger the same way. Aaron Rodgers starting to find out a little bit now, getting knocked around. When you're that physical and take that many hits, you tend to get banged up. That being said, supposedly the shoulder's fine. Supposedly he's throwing fine. Your 100-catch guys are still McCaffrey and a healthy Olsen, even though he's 34. It's not these guys.
I don't think tremendous talents. Would like to see either one of them, say, in Atlanta or New Orleans, and I think they could put up the numbers, all these guys expect from them. I just don't see a scenario in this Carolina offense where these guys could elevate themselves even to a wide receiver 2 status. I think they're – Rick, 65 catch type of guys is probably the ceiling. I think for anybody, not named Steve Smith in this Carolina offense.
I agree 100%, Rick. And until Cam Newton decides that he trusts one or both these guys enough, they're not going to be real red zone targets either. It's going to be McCaffrey, it's going to be Newton, it's going to be Olsen, and it's going to be Newton.
Right, yeah.
And that's just the way it is with Carolina. And, look, I'm on board with you. I love DJ Moore. Samuel, I like what I saw in him as well. But you're talking 65 to 70 maybe for Moore, and probably 50 55, 50, 60 maybe for Samuel.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about a team with a quarterback who likes to run and who should run because he's darn good at it, especially down around the goal line, with a running back who, had 220 carries last year, caught 107 balls, and every report we have is he's better now, that he's bigger and he's stronger and he's faster.
Yeah,
and,
he's a $6 million man. Yeah.
It's amazing. Now, sometimes I worry about that type of hype in a guy, but that tells you who this team is, right? And they don't have. Funchess didn't work out. Look, we can mock him and we can blame Funchess, but Benjamin didn't work out. We can mock him and blame him. There's a graveyard of high potential wide receivers that have come through there in the Cam Newton regime who have just never put up those numbers. So it leads me to one of two conclusions. Either the Carolina Panthers are really bad at identifying wide receiver talent, or Cam Newton and that offense don't utilize the wide receivers in the way most of the other league does. Either one of those gives me caution as a fantasy owner. Look, I'd be happy to roster either of them, but I have no expectations from either of them, I guess is what I'm saying.
I agree 100%.
So last thing real quick, I know he's your boy, he's your man.
Let's go! It's Kyleigh.
Greg Olsen, your boy. Let's say he's healthy. Let's say he plays 16 rather than nicked up. What's the ceiling for him? Does he take a slide back if he's healthy, or is his slide all tied to health?
Oh, I think a lot of it's tied to health, but all that aside, if he's healthy, this guy's he's all man. I mean, let's face it, he stays in shape. He lives to play football for the Carolina Panthers. him and Cam Newton are tight. Let's face it.
Cam trusts him.
There's
one guy in that offense he trusts.
Exactly. He's a team leader. I still think a healthy Greg Olsen is an 85-catch guy. And maybe that's a slight tick down. I don't have his
Would it
last
surprise
few
you
years.
if I told you if he caught 85 balls this year, it would be the most he's ever had in a season?
Really? See, I thought he had a 100-catch year
a
couple years ago.
So we can go back to it, his whole career, 39, 54, 60, 41, 45. I scrolled too far. 69, 73, 84, 77, 80, 17, 27.
So 70. I mean, I'll go 70.
I think if he's healthy, I could see. I'd lean more 60, but we're not going to sit here and scream over 10 receptions in a fictitious scenario. But, yeah, I think that's where he lands. The touchdown numbers, 5, 6. He kind of averages about 6 for his career.
Right.
If he's healthy. And, look, again, back to what I said about Austin Hooper. This year in fantasy football, you'd be darn happy to take that if you could get 65 grabs and 4 touchdowns out of him.
I agree. I mean, when you go back to talking about him and Cam Newton, you look at those 3 years. I can't remember when Cam Newton was drafted. Do you remember?
Oh, goodness. 2011, right?
I think 2011. So they basically came to Carolina at the same time. And he has had basically increased production every year, save for injury.
Right.
The first year in Carolina, 500. These are yards: 540, 843, 816, 1,008, 1,104, 1,073. So, yeah, I mean, okay. Yeah, I missed a ball. He did have 84, 77, and 80 3 years in a row catch-wise. So I can see him easily healthy at another 70-catch year. No problem if he's healthy.
All right, let's head down, Rick, to New Orleans. Boy, again, for as hard as the NFC East was to talk about outside of a couple running backs, this South is almost harder because just every team is wow.
Yeah.
All these just locked down, forget about it. I mean, you're talking Drew Brees still getting it done at 64 years old. Alvin Kamara, we know that there's 1, 2, or 3. That's the conundrum I find myself in a couple of drafts. Michael Thomas, boy, what he did last year and taking that step forward. So I think that the questions here with New Orleans, number one, Mark Ingram's gone. Does Latavius Murray have the value that an Ingram did? Does he get that amount of work? Is he that productive in it?
Yes.
I know. What is it with you and Latavius Murray?
Because he produces. I mean, look at him in Minnesota. He was basically, in Oakland. Of course, Oakland was a debacle, but he produced. He was fine in Oakland, and then they went with beast mode,
right?
And he goes to Minnesota, and he basically outperformed the running backs there. Cook was hurt, of course, and I'll have to pull his stats up. I don't even have them in front of me because I was getting ready to talk about Michael Thomas.
How much is there to talk about with Michael? He's going to catch 100 again.
Okay, here we go. He just, your internet is just going crazy today for some reason here. But he had a 1,000-yard rushing year in 2015 with Oakland. He's a meat and potatoes guy. Over 800 yards with Minnesota. He played 16 games. He played 16 games last year. Look at his touchdown production the last 3 years, 12, 8, 6. I mean, I think he fits that mold of Mark Ingram.
Probably. Yeah.
Perfectly in New Orleans.
Yeah.
He's a hammer. They've already got Kamara. I mean, this is a big guy. And, he's a great red zone guy. He can catch the ball if they have to, but, he doesn't really have to, obviously, with Kamara there. But, I mean, he's been averaging – with Oakland, he averaged probably close to 35 catches a year. And so, I mean, if he has to, he can catch the football. And I think he has similar value with the Raiders as Ingram did.
Or with the Saints.
Or what did I say?
The Raiders.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. With the Saints.
I'd like to see Ingram with the Raiders. They need a running back as well. Maybe we can make that happen.
I don't know.
See
Josh
if you can work
Jacobs,
that.
He's looking,
Yeah. So look, I agree. I think, and that's the model, right? That's what Sean Payton wants to do. And Kamara touches the ball so much, somebody has to get the ball 15, 20 times a game so he's not dead by Halloween, right? So,
Right.
So I agree with you. I think Murray puts up, very Mark Ingram-like numbers. Still haven't found a tight end. Jared Cook's interesting, right? He had some great games on a bad team last year with Oakland. I just don't know. We talk about it a lot. If you ever, revisit that Jimmy Graham magic down there, it seems like you talked about that in our last episode where that was just the perfect quarterback, the perfect tight end, the perfect scheme, the perfect couple of years. Now, what I do think is you expect big touchdown numbers for Jared Cook. I think you see that.
You think?
I do. I really do.
Why? Okay, I'm asking this. Aside from Jimmy Graham,
right?
Where's the evidence that there's going to be a productive tight end in New Orleans?
Because it's Jared Cook.
Yeah.
Who has a knack for catching touchdowns.
That one good year.
Yeah,
Look, the potential's there, obviously.
Right.
But it just seems to me, we talked about like that special player on one of the previous shows. It just seems like, and maybe Breeze will find trust in this guy, and all of a sudden they click. I'm just not sold yet that he's going to walk in and be some sort of touchdown machine at tight end, is like we grown to expect from a Jimmy Graham type of thing.
Yeah,
In fact, we go back to last year. I listened to last week's show. You realize that we failed to even mention Jimmy Graham when we were talking about the Packers.
Yeah, he's forgotten.
Exactly. And I don't know, I just don't see Jared Cook. He had that little niche in Oakland. I'm just not expecting much. Let's put it that way.
He's heading the right direction in
yeah.
his career, and he's in the right offense. So I'll say that. That's when you want to be in. I think the problem you run into in New Orleans is what Michael Thomas is doing. You got Alvin Kamara. He's, inside the 10, all the different creative ways they get him the ball. There's always somebody, right? Somebody you hadn't heard of. There's 9 big, oafy white guys you've never seen before or heard of who end up scoring at some point.
Well, Ted Ginn, of course.
Well, he's not a big, oafy white guy.
No, but
that becomes the interesting thing now when you look. You're always trying to find that second receiver. There's got to be a second receiver. It's Drew Brees. It's New Orleans. You have Ted Ginn, Austin Carr, Keith Kirkwood, Traquan Smith. Need I go on? Rashard Matthews is there. Cameron Meredith, who there's been a lot of rumblings that he, this is a kid I was excited about, thought he was going to play. A lot of rumblings he may not make the team, that they tend to like, Smith and Kirkwood above him. So, I don't think anyone ever breaks out. I think this is one of those weird situations where it's a high-powered offense where essentially it's going to run through 2 guys. It's going to run through Thomas. It's going to run through Kamara because generally in the NFL, somebody's able to pick up some scraps because NFL defenses can start taking some of this away. There ain't no indication anybody's taking Thomas or Kamara away. So that's going to be the bulk of it. And, we're going to roster all these guys, and they're all going to be essentially useless from a weekly fantasy perspective for me.
I agree.
Deep best balls, give me all the Keith Kirkwood and Trey Smith you can give me. But, God, I don't want them in a week-to-week redraft type of scenario.
No, I agree. And Drew Brees is certainly still a very safe quarterback pick on your fantasy squad, even though he is 110.
Oh,
and you heard it here. Jared Cook, I want no part of.
I'm all over Jared Cook. That'll be our one disagreement.
He's been in He's been in the league 10 years?
Has he been in that long?
Since 2009. I'm going to read you his TD totals.
All right.
0, 1, 3, 4, 5, 3, 0, 1, 2, 6.
I like the 6. See, he's heading the right direction. You made my argument for me. Thank you.
All right. I'm telling you, I'm just staying away from him.
All right, let's head down to Tampa, Rick, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
That is – do we have to?
Probably ought to at least briefly mention it.
This is a make or break year for Winston, don't you think?
Well, it's got to be. Absolutely. Although with Blaine Gabbert behind you, I don't know how worried you have to be.
The hype is Ronald Jones.
Yeah, all over it.
I still see Peyton Barber listed as the first string running back right now. My question is really,
well, you want to piss the draftniks off? I just want to try to take a stab at who's listed at number 3 on the running back depth chart if I could. All right.
Sure.
Dare Ugunbowale. Somebody's going to be furious about that. Needless to say, I've never heard of Mr. Ugunbowale, and I'm not familiar with his oeuvre, unfortunately. I'll admit that readily.
That's true. I'm not sure what to. This sure is a far cry from the Warwick Dunn Mike Allstott days, isn't it? I mean, we're talking about Ronald Jones and Peyton Barber. And no disrespect to either one of these guys, but I don't see Adrian Peterson numbers anywhere on this team.
No.
And I'm just not, and I guess my point is I'm not ready to jump on Ronald Jones as the full-time starter, let alone somebody I want full-time in my fantasy lineup right now.
Right.
I think Peyton Barber's going to get plenty of work this year.
He always kind of did, right? Whoever that next guy the last few years for Tampa was always going to be, Peyton ended up cutting into his workload so much.
And what is the hype, Rick, going into 2019? It's not really Winston. We've talked a lot about Jones leapfrogging over Barber, but the hype, of course, is Godwin and Howard.
Right. Yeah, Godwin specifically.
You're right.
His ADP is out of control and still rising.
It is. And, look, Mike Evans is an elite receiver.
Right,
he's going to be – he's a top 5 wide receiver with your, Thomas, Jones, Hopkins, A.B.,
Beckham, he's in that conversation.
Beckham,
you can make
Adams,
certainly top 8,
Evans,
top 9.
Yeah, exactly. Godwin, I'm trying to put my head around his potential, and the reason I'm saying that is because we're already talking about Evans. You're already talking about O.J. Howard taking a step up. And now we're talking about Godwin when we are looking at a quarterback that is basically, 3,500 to 4,000 yard max passer?
I think what you're looking at with Godwin, and I've bought into this hype, obviously more than you, not to the level it's gotten. It's at a fever pitch right now. But Deshaun Jackson is gone. Humphreys is gone. There's a lot of targets,
You're right.
a lot of catches, and a lot of touchdowns gone. And we saw Godwin in what was a pretty bad offense last year, I'd venture to say. Catch. What did he end up with? Was it 50, 60 catches? Did he get to 60? He was pretty close if he didn't get there.
Yeah, you pat, I'll pull him up.
850-ish, I think he was somewhere in there. And I know
59 catches, 842, and 7 touchdowns.
So he did that, with a Deshaun Jackson still in town, with Humphreys, kind of taken, with, Cameron Brate still there, with O.J. Howard there. So you've sort of cleared out some weapons there, right, especially in a Deshaun Jackson. You've cleared out some weapons. He's another one of those eye test guys. That's what I always talk about, right? I hate to get wrapped up in. You just watch him, and he looks like an elite receiver out there. When he gets the ball in the open field, when he goes up for a contested ball, he looks. So I think the hype is justified to a degree. Now, your point, well taken. Jameis Winston is not good enough, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are not good enough to host 2 top 20 fantasy wide receivers. So knowing what Mike Evans has done in that scenario, that's where Godwin for me is still a mid-level, low-level 2, which I think is a step up still for him. You know what I mean?
The more you talk, you're actually convincing me.
Well, it's because I make a lot of sense. I'm very persuasive.
For once, 41 receptions, over 700, almost 800 yards with Deshaun Jackson last year. And, that's pretty significant when you're talking
In a
about
bad offense.
when you're talking about Adam Humphries, who was 70 catches?
Was he
it
high?
that much? I don't know. That's
I can take a look while you talk.
I mean, that is a lot of targets taken away, from this guy. And when you look at what you have now, you have Godwin and Evans, and of course Hooper.
76 grabs last year.
Yeah,
Adam
I thought
Humphries,
so.
You were right.
Okay, and what's behind them is Brashard Perryman,
I can't believe he's still in the
Justin
league.
Watson, Bobo Wilson, Scott Miller. All indications are, the hype could be real with Godwin this year.
Yeah.
Me and you and I.
Me and you.
I like me
We're
and you.
dumb. Say me and you.
Yeah, me and you.
We're idiots, and I assume most people who listen to this are idiots, so let's speak their language.
Exactly.
The mouth breathers out there.
We don't buy into a whole lot of hype, but I'm buying the Chris Godwin hype. I believe that Evans and Godwin could be, should I say, dynamic duo?
Could be. Could very well be. Like I said, you do worry about, is that offense going to be good enough? Is Jameis Winston good enough to be the quarterback of two elite wide receivers? I think he could be an elite and a pretty darn good wide receiver, which is maybe where Godwin ends up.
If any of this hype folds together in the run game with Jones and Barber.
Jones is the one I'm surprised
Well, especially
by.
Jones, obviously. I think we know what we're getting with Peyton Barber.
Yeah.
But with Ronald Jones, if they tick it up a little bit, I mean, Evans and Godwin and Howard, this could be a pretty good offense.
Could be.
And it's going to need to be in this division.
I just wish Fitzmagic was still there. Then I'd feel more comfortable with all of this.
That's a good point.
So
I agree.
So what, time to go west, young man, is it not?
Oh, the NFC West. Remember back in the days when we were talking about, just not that long ago, the brutal Arizona Cardinal defense, the Rams defense, which is still pretty darn good, Seattle defense, which is aging but still pretty good, Now we're talking about the Ram basically back to the air shows again
Right,
with Jared Goff. The Cardinals, all of a sudden, David Johnson's healthy, and everything's going to turn around with the Kyleigh Murray at quarterback.
Kyleigh Murray, I like that.
Yeah, and I mean,
or Kyler Murray.
I like Kyleigh. I always say Kyleigh. And
well, we got a name for this show.
Well, yeah,
don't we?
Kyleigh, kind of like Jamie Winston. Everybody should be an E.
They do that in
Tommy
hockey
Brady,
a lot, don't they?
Yeah, Tommy Brady, Benny Roethlisberger,
I don't think anybody's ever called him Benny Roethlisberger.
Matty Breida.
I like that. I like Matty.
Yeah, Matty.
Matty
good.
Ice.
Yeah. Matty Breida.
Matty's good.
Yeah.
I'm down with Matty.
I like that.
Is the internet down again in this studio?
Yes, it is.
This is unbelievable.
It is.
I don't understand it.
We're going to move to Studio A, I think.
Yeah, I'm not doing that again. We always get in trouble there.
No, not in Studio A. It's the C's and the D's and everywhere else we seem to go.
The landlord always got mad at us in Studio A.
Well, that's got you to run my dog headlong into a steel post and everything else.
Who brings a dog in the studio?
Well, she keeps her eye on the riffraff coming in.
That's true. What are we talking about? Oh, the Cardinals.
Yeah. No, anyway, we'll talk about the Arizona Cardinals first. Look, who's interesting to you on the Cardinals? David Johnson?
Yeah.
He is to me.
Yeah.
Christian Kirk? Larry Fitzgerald?
I mean, Larry going to get his, right? That's all Larry does is get his. He gets drafted in the 9th round, produces as a wide receiver too, and everybody says, oh, I can't believe I passed on Larry Fitzgerald. We've been doing this for 4 years now, it feels like. I think this is a much, 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 much better situation for David Johnson, right? Has anyone that talented ever been more misused than David Johnson was last year?
No, I don't think so.
I don't know, does he reproduce a couple years ago? I don't know that. They're not going to be a very good football team, but David Johnson's going to be a lockdown, forget about it, top and running back one. So we don't need to spend much time there. We can sit here and argue if he's 6.
Let's face it, the whole thing is getting back to serious, Kyler Murray. It's
simple as that.
It's no doubt. Look, they said they cut ties with Rosen, and you're gone. We're bringing this guy in. Okay, Kyler Murray has all the indications that he could be great, but let's face it, he's still a rookie on a bad team.
Right.
And you have Larry Fitzgerald, who's getting pretty long in the tooth. You have Christian Kirk and Andy Isabella. Now, you don't have a whole lot of experience other than Fitzgerald.
No, young guy.
Exactly.
Outside of Fitzgerald. Yeah.
Right. You do have Charles Clay and Ricky Seals-Jones at the tight end situation.
Bleh.
But, so what? I mean, it's
Yeah, I mean,
they're maybe decent enough to keep linebackers off of Murray.
my concern here with Kyler Murray is if he's going to have any success this year. Now, I am not a scout of college talent, but we saw plenty of Kyler Murray. If he's going to have any success this year, it's going to be running the football, right? He'll make a few throws, but if he has any marked success in 2019, it's going to be running the football, which does not bode well for anybody else on that team from a fantasy
Well, and it doesn't bode well for the Arizona Cardinals either.
No.
When he's playing the Rams twice, you're playing
Right.
Seattle twice, and an improved San Francisco twice on top of the rest of the schedule because – you've invested this much into a rookie quarterback. I don't care what kind of how good of an athlete he is, unless you are Cam Newton.
Right.
Basically, you don't last very long running around.
No.
And
But we see him do it for a year. You see young quarterbacks, rookie quarterbacks, Deshaun Watson, his rookie year. Now he flung it pretty well to it. I
Sure.
feel like he's a better passer than a Kyler Murray is. But you see it from these mobile running Lamar Jackson's a perfect example. I don't think
Lamar Jackson has to. He can't throw the football.
Well, I'm wondering, is Kyler Murray the same way, especially in his rookie year? He doesn't look like a pro passer to me. He looks like a pro athlete, an NFL player who the passing can be – I could be dead wrong. We'll probably have the draftniks beating us up at Asylum Football on Twitter. But he looks like he's athletic enough to come in and be an NFL starter.
He's
but he's going to have to learn how to
enough.
be an NFL passer.
But they're already comparing him to Russell Wilson.
Yeah,
get out of here.
That's nonsense.
No, it is because he can't throw like Russell Wilson, and until he does or he can, I fear for him as far as that goes.
But so I think the only one this bodes well for are David Johnson and his reception numbers, right? Larry Fitzgerald will be fine. Christian Kirk will catch a couple of deep ones. This all comes down to if this goes the way I think it does with Kyler Murray, David Johnson might have 100 grabs this year. He might catch 100 balls.
He might have to. Because I'll tell you another thing. A 5'10 quarterback who's not NFL savvy. I mean, he's not Drew Brees standing back there who is 6 foot tall.
Right.
When this kid's 5'10 and he's playing fast 6'5" linebackers, not to mention the mountain linemen coming at him.
Right.
I can see a lot of batted balls. You're going to have to be dumping it off in the flats to Johnson and so forth.
And what I'm thinking with a rookie quarterback who, again, this may just be me, I'm suspect his ability to throw the ball downfield. Larry Fitzgerald and pretty much nobody else of note at the wide receiver position. If I'm coordinating a defense against this team, David Johnson isn't going to run the ball for me. We could very well see a season where David Johnson only averages about 3.5 yards per carry because he's going to be facing loaded boxes. But I think he's still going to have value as he's an 85, 90, 100-catch guy because that's going to be the bulk of their offense, and he's the best athlete they have outside of Murray on that offense.
I agree.
All right, well, that's a lot of talk about a whole lot of nothing out there.
Yeah. Let's move on to your Los Angeles Rams.
My Rams, my L.A. I'm an L.A. type of guy, Rick. Don't I look at
You are about as L.A. type of guy as I am a New York City type of guy.
I didn't see you in New York. Have you ever been in New York City?
I went through it one time.
I've never been, and I never intend.
I
Nor L.A. for
don't
that
ever
matter.
want to see it again either. It was... Yeah, I mean, look, it's no secret. I'm not a city guy. That place scared me to death. It's huge.
I can't
I mean,
imagine.
nothing but, I mean, it's
I was in Chicago once and was baffled by it and how much bigger is New York than Chicago.
a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah. What is it? New York's first, L.A.'s second. And I think I read somewhere where Houston has passed up Chicago as number 3.
Wouldn't the thing with Houston, though, it's not as dense. It's like spread out for 8,000
It
miles.
could be. I don't
it feels
know.
like it's like no matter where you're at in Houston, you're a half an hour away from wherever you're going in Houston. Somebody told me that once.
It very well could be. But let's face it, you're talking anything like Chicago, Philadelphia, they're big. And, yeah. Unless you're a city person, I mean, they're overwhelming.
Oh, I couldn't handle
It's like dropping a city guy off on a mountaintop somewhere and says, "Have at it." He's like, "Whoa, what's going on?"
Good luck, city boy. All right, what do we? Oh, the Rams. How the hell did we get there from the Rams?
Doesn't matter.
What
does
a
it?
stupid show. Why does anybody ever listen?
You stink.
I don't know why anybody listens to this.
When are the two of you going to grow up? I mean,
Never.
your shtick was cute for a while, but it's gotten stale.
That's
Well,
fair.
go away then. I don't care.
Let's talk about the Rams.
Let's talk about Jared Goff.
And let's talk about Blake Bortles. Jared Goff better be watching his back pile. That's what it
Well,
this
how
is
many
at.
more bars are in L.A. than there were in Jacksonville?
Blake
huh?
might not show up for day one.
That's true.
Face
That's-
down in the gutter. I wonder if he's really a drunk or I'm just propagating some awful lie.
Well, that's what we normally
Yeah,
do.
that's true.
That he doesn't seem to mind. I mean,
No.
he's an asylumite.
Yeah.
He doesn't complain.
He's mild, man.
Jared Goff, 4,688 yards last year, 32 touchdowns, 12 picks. Is that what you expect from him? You expect a little more?
Oh, I think sky's the limit for this kid. You know,
Well, that's what I'm asking. I mean,
with McVay, with what they're doing.
what's up with Gurley?
I
So,
do
you
worry
know,
if the question marks at the running game, how that's going to affect Jared Goff. Right now that it feels like could be dead wrong. Hope I am. God, Todd Gurley is so fun to watch when Todd Gurley's right. My God, he's exciting.
Oh,
to watch.
yes.
But I guess we're going to find out, right? I feel like we're not going to have a steady running game in L.A. How does Jared Goff perform when it is all on his back? You know, it kind of felt like I don't know, the numbers would probably belie that, but he kind of limped them through the playoffs, limped them to the Super Bowl as much as you can limp yourself to the Super Bowl through the playoffs. You know, saw he wasn't great in the Super Bowl, wasn't great in the playoffs, you know, because of the kind of the upheaval and the uncertainty at the running back position. If they've got that worked out, if Gurley's right, if Henderson is the real deal, if Malcolm Brown's if one of these guys, if they can get a good steady running game, sky's the limit. Jared Goff's the right guy. McVay's the right coach for that player. I feel like it. I don't know. The sky's the limit.
Yeah, and let's not forget Cooper Kupp went out in the season last year, ACL. You know, that hurt Goff's numbers a little bit, I'm
Right.
sure. Hopefully he's healthy. If he's healthy with Cooks, Woods, and Kupp, man, I'm with you. I mean, this is a juggernaut here.
Here's an interesting one. Rank those three.
And I don't have stats in front of me, but I will. Truthfully, I think from a dependability standpoint, I think I would go Woods,
Really?
Cooks, Kupp.
I go Cooks, Woods, Cup, but I think Cooks and Woods, it's kind of like you see one go off the board, it puts it in everybody's mind, and the other one probably goes. I don't know if ADP would bear that out or if I'm just completely out of whack. But I just feel like from the rum-dum drug addict leagues we play in a lot of times, once one goes, it's going to bring you to mind of the other one. Because you don't think about these guys as good as that offense has been in that elite category, but they put up some pretty darn elite numbers last year.
Well, I mean, that's why you don't. I mean, there's Robert Woods, 86 catches, 1,219 yards, and 6 touchdowns.
His name never comes up when we mention the elite wide
Right.
receivers. Never.
Brandon Cooks, 1,204 yards, 5 touchdowns. And he had 80 catches. That's 166 catches between those two alone. But you don't have the 110 catch guy.
Right.
You know, that's the reason you don't talk to them, because if you're talking to elite receivers, yes, you want the Adam Thielens, the Devontae Adams, whoever, Hopkins and so forth. But these guys are
Those are pretty elite numbers. Maybe not be elite
Tier 1,
catch
man.
numbers, but
I mean, if
those
you're
elite
going
yardage.
if you're going with that model of elite, tier 1, tier 2, blah blah, they're tier 1 guys,
Right.
no
and,
doubt
and
about
I feel
that.
like they don't get mentioned there. So, you wonder, was that lightning in a bottle? I don't know why, and it probably sounds dumb. I never sort of bought the Cup thing. You know what I mean? It kind of was like we just finished the 4th of July. It was like a sparkler. It burned hot and fast, and then I know it was injury, and but it was gone as quick as it came. I don't know where I am. I'd be happy to roster him, but that's not a guy I'm targeting. But Woods and Cooks, I feel like, especially when you play with the felons that we play with, these are guys you can steal.
Oh, they have history. They've got longevity. Look, Cup emerged in 2017. I mean, he had 62 catches, 869 yards, and 5 touchdowns. Going into 18, before he went out, and I'm not sure what week he did go out, but it was later in the year, I think.
Right, it felt like it.
He had 40 catches, 566 yards, 6 touchdowns. He catches touchdowns, which makes him attractive.
Oh, absolutely.
But that's why he's third on my list. I mean, look, you can juggle your Cooks and Woods, but we just looked at the numbers. I mean, you're looking A and B. It doesn't really much matter.
I think we agree there. So it's really, what are you doing with Todd Gurley, Rick? Hey, how far has he dropped for you? I'll tell you what, I might be flat avoiding him. He could make you look foolish. How many championships did he win for people 2 years
Here's an
ago?
example. We're in a network league. I made the pick because you were off gallivanting around drunk somewhere.
I do gallivant.
And it came up.
Gallivanter.
We were the 6th pick, okay? I don't know the exact order, but it was like Barkley, Kamara, McCaffrey, Elliott. And then it was, I think Hopkins was 5th. And so that came up to us. I kind of rolled the bones and took Le'Veon Bell over Todd Gurley.
Right.
Call me stupid. I don't know. But Le'Veon Bell right now is healthy and apparently is working pretty hard. And I think a lot of people are sleeping on the Jets.
Right.
When it comes to that. So, I mean, you could talk me into taking Gurley. But I'm thinking I'm taking Bell over him. I'm taking Gordon over him.
Right.
And maybe Gurley's my 7th or 8th back?
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking at the turn, maybe you could talk yourself into it. Yeah, I mean, that's just the I mean, look, if he ends up being healthy, he's probably the best back in the league again. He probably surpasses Barkley, makes everybody look the fool. But nobody's saying anything. I don't know any more now than I knew during the Super Bowl, right? And I don't know that I'm going to know any more before.
And that's the thing about the Super Bowl. It was 9-3. They couldn't get the passing game going, so why isn't Gurley in there?
Yeah, and
see,
I don't know anymore now.
And I see a lot of – no, as a matter of fact, David Johnson went, not Hopkins went.
Okay.
That's what – remember I tweeted, I said maybe I should have taken Hopkins.
Okay.
That's what it was. David Johnson actually went 5th overall as a running back, and then I took Bell over Gurley. So – I mean, the consensus is right now, in my mind, I mean, he's probably 8 to 9. Connor's in the conversation. Like I just said, Melvin Gordon. And I've seen a lot of these experts in ADPs. Joe Mixon's rocketing up ADP boards.
A lot of hype for him. Probably well deserved.
So, I mean, you're going to get good value, I think, with Todd Gurley, but I don't think you're going to get – you need to get him like at the 5th overall pick. You can probably pick him up in the 10th or 11th maybe. I don't know.
I couldn't bring myself to do it. Yeah, if I was down around the turn and all those guys we mentioned were gone, I think I would take the risk.
Sure.
There. I'm not taking the risk in the top 5 and the top 6.
No, I agree.
I mean, let's look at correct me if I'm wrong here, Rick. I'm going to guess his ADP is probably around. I don't want everybody to have to listen to me pull it up. Probably RB 7 or 8. Is that about where his ADP? Does that sound fair?
Gurley?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
So you're looking at him. That puts him, behind Barkley, Kamara, McCaffrey, Johnson, Gordon, Bell, Mixon, Connor. So, so that I guess that becomes a game. So right now, assuming up and through Joe Mixon are gone, let's play it. Todd Gurley or James Conner?
Boy, I mean to tell you what, I'm Gurley.
I think I'm taking Conner there.
The reason I won't take Connor, is because I'm really liking that depth at the running back with Snell and Samuel. So
you're down on my guy. Gurley, Dalvin Cook.
Gurley.
I think that's where I take the risk. We talked about it last episode, kind of, or was it this one? I can't remember. They're all running together. We talk about Cook. Then we get into, Gurley, Nick Chubb. Now I think it's Gurley, right? You're taking the risk on a Gurley.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I like Chubb. Don't get me wrong. We'll have to revisit that as we get closer to training camp and everything. Because I tell you what, Chubb, I see a lot of potential there with Chubb. I mean, that's no secret. That's no secret. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, I think this is where you see Duke Johnson really fading away.
Oh yeah, he's out of favor. He's unhappy.
Right. I agree.
Kareem Hunt can't seem to stay out of trouble, so I think it's Chubb's job the whole way. We talked about that a few episodes back. All right, Rick, let's head a little bit north and head up to San Francisco. Talk about your 49ers and your boy Jimmy G back and presumably healthy.
Yeah, and that's
where's he slide in?
Well, I don't know. I mean,
he's a QB2 for me, right? You don't draft him as your one.
Oh no, not even close to me. I mean, that's San Francisco doesn't blow my skirt up. I mean, it's got a crowded backfield, fantasy wise. Tevin Coleman, McKinnon, Breida. I mean, I think Breida's still the best out of the three. To be honest with you. Pardon me?
Does anybody emerge, or is it a full-time committee?
I don't think so. We never saw Jerick McKinnon emerge ever.
No.
In a backfield that was with guys.
Last year was going to be the year, and unfortunately he went down, and now you bring in Coleman.
He couldn't beat out Latavius Murray. He couldn't beat out Matt Asiata. I mean, it was
Matt Asiata.
Yeah. A touchdown machine those couple of years that McKinnon was supposed to break out. Tevin Coleman's never lived up to the height. Nothing really stands out there. It's all Garoppolo, Pettis, and Godwin to me. And of course, Kittle. I mean, let's just
Kittle. We don't have to talk about.
Right, I agree with that. I mean, Dante Pettis, I'm high on. Garoppolo, even if he's 70%, he's better than anything that they had.
Oh, absolutely.
So
you mean you trust him over Nick Mullins and C.J. Beathard?
Okay, no, I really like Nick. Nicky.
Nicky.
We'll go the E's on him.
Now, what do you do with a guy named C.J.? Is C.J.E.?
Yeah.
And the most famous one.
Ajayi. There's our boy. I tell you what, they're going to have to throw the football in San Francisco. I really believe it, and Garoppolo's no stranger to it. Dante Pettis.
But people are losing their S over Pettis. Are you in? You in on that?
Maybe not as high as a lot of people, but I'm in on him.
He's one of them dudes. We've talked about a few of them here. He's in the Godwin stratosphere of people just losing their minds.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing is, it's all back to Garoppolo. How's that knee?
Right.
And
again, he's young. He's been in the league for a while, but he's got about 9 games under his belt. He's young. I don't fear that injury, obviously like we used to. So.
No, it's not. The technology is so much better. I agree. Look, don't be afraid of these guys. And I'm talking about Pettis, obviously, a good one.
Goodwin's a guy I love having around. Nice flex guy.
I think he's going to be a good value.
Big games, then down games. Big games, down games. He kind of plays that yo-yo. But, best ball, Goodwin's a guy I really target. Jordan Matthews, I think we're getting about to the end with him. That doesn't move the needle. So Pettis has to be the guy.
That used to be your guy, Jordan Matthews.
Well, remember, I caught him his rookie year, and he busted out. I think that was the first year I won the Addicts and Convicts League that we're in. Wonder if those guys listen and they know how awfully I speak of them.
Well, you do it to their face,
well, that's
so
true.
why wouldn't you do it behind their back?
That's fair.
Yeah. I mean,
they should be listening. That should be required. You're the commish. Required proof of listening if they want to stay in the league.
Well, that's a good point. Or we can charge more money.
Ooh, a fine for not listening to the show.
That would be great.
We do that to other people, other groups.
Yeah, let's just do that. We'll just charge
people
them.
we work with, whoever.
Exactly.
Let's work on that. Is there anything else to talk about in San Francisco?
No, we're moving on to Seattle.
Seattle. Talk about a sinking ship there, pal. Jeez.
Big questions to me in Seattle. and it doesn't have to do with Russell Wilson, and it doesn't have to do with Will Dissly, because I could care less about Will Dissly.
Yeah, there was some Will Dissly hype for a little bit last year. He was a waiver wire. People were pulling it over their heads, excited for Will Dissly.
This is another team that is really a lot like Carolina. Now you got DK Metcalf and David Moore as your wide receivers.
Lockett's still around.
Yeah, Lockett's still there. But,
Lockett's a guy I'm targeting.
Oh, trust me, I like it. I'm talking about the hype. I mean, everything is Metcalf. Moore. I mean, Lockett. Look, I like Lockett and Russell because they're going to get theirs. And then a lot of it depends, and here we go again, because I say this like 1,000 times every year. Depends on that run game. It's Chris Carson and Rashad Penny. Yet again, who is it going to be? Is Carson going to...
And don't forget, C.J. Procise is still there. Remember when all the draft nicks were beating me in the face with C.J. Procise? Terrible.
I remember that, and you were quite angry about it.
I didn't care for it whatsoever.
I didn't either. Look, Chris Carson, 1,151 yards last year.
He was good last year. It was quiet, but he was good.
9 rushing touchdowns. Are you buying him to stay healthy? How much stock do you have in Rashad Penny? Is he going to get his? These are questions.
Here's what
fantasy-wise. Look, I'd love to have Chris Carson on my team, as long as I didn't have to make sure I had to start him every week.
Right. Yeah, I think I had him in that sort of position last year. So here's what I want to know, Rick. Can you explain this to me? Or can, if you're listening and you're one of those folks, somebody come in and tell me, Chris Carson had a great year last year, put up really good, very serviceable numbers. Why is it now that as I sit here in July, you're telling me Rashad Penny's going to be the guy, and it's the royal you, not you, Rick Briggs, because you're not telling me that. Well, we don't talk other than this hour a week on the show, and for good reason. But Rashad Penny's all the hype, right? Look, I know he's the high draft pick. I know he's nicked up last year, everything. Why would he come in and supplant Chris Carson? I think at best we're looking at a split here, and now we're back to no serviceable whack in Seattle once again.
I think Rashad Penny should be your handcuff if you drafted Chris Carson.
You're going to have to draft both if you draft one, aren't you?
But I still think it's Carson's show. I mean, this guy had a good year last year. 1,151 yards, 9 rushing touchdowns. And Rashad Penny, I mean, to his credit, he put up 419 yards. And, of course, he's coming in. He's yet another guy coming into training camp looking slimmer. But you look at his numbers last year, he played virtually the whole year, and his fantasy output was basically nil. He hit double-digit scoring twice all last year. He had a 108-yard game against Los Angeles in Week 10, and he had a double-digit score, 65 yards and a touchdown against San Francisco in Week 13. Other than that, I mean, you're talking single-digit fantasy scoring with this guy constantly.
You know what's funny with Rashad Penny? Remember when Seattle drafted him in 2018 and got roundly mocked? Oh, they reached for this guy. He sucks. He's terrible. And then as the fantasy season came along, all these same people, because they tend to be the same people then, because it looked like Penny was going to be the guy going into the season, right? Because everybody was beat up and sucked and was no good and everything. And then it was, oh, my God, Rashad Penny makes Jim Brown look like a ballerina. He's going to be the best fantasy running back ever. And then a whole season goes by. He does squat. Chris Carson puts up a decent year. And these same jokers who called him a loser have now decided that he is the greatest fantasy running back ever and won't get off that train. I think it might be a bunch of hype for nothing. I think as long as Chris Carson's healthy, this is his gig. I really do. I'm going to stand up and just say it. I was being wishy-washy before. I'm done. Chris Carson in Seattle, that's the one you want. That's your guy. That's your dude.
I agree. I mean, from Week 8 on, now he missed a Week 10 game, which, Rashad Penny did acquit himself with a 100-yard game in Week 10. But Chris Carson had double-digit fantasy scoring in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of his last 8 games that he played. And rushing yards, 83, 55, 90, 119, 116, 105. Scoring touchdowns. I mean, this is...
And everybody just can't wait to tell me how Rashad Penny, of course, he's taken over this year.
I agree.
And look, in Seattle, I guess I wouldn't be surprised. That situation's been a mess ever since Marshawn Lynch left Lowe those many years ago. But, yeah, come on.
I agree. I mean, I think Chris Carson, as long as he's healthy, this is his gig, man.
All right.
Seattle defense, go ahead and draft him fantasy-wise, not a problem. Russell Wilson, draft him, not a problem. Tyler Lockett, draft him. You know, it's the receivers that you have to think about.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that there's anyone beyond Lockett from a fantasy standpoint. I'm even thinking about. Are you? I'm not.
Not really. They're not that potent of an offense, quite frankly. And you know, when it gets right down to it, they're just not. They're a defensive team. They beat you to death. They tend to explode now and again, but yeah, I mean, I'm not going after any of these guys other than Lockett.
No. All right, can we go home?
Yep.
I'm tired. All right, I'm going to hit the button. Ooh, there it is. That means we're going home. All right, well, thanks so much for joining us this week. We are done. I don't even know what we're going to talk about next week, Rick. We've used this to drag out 4 episodes. We're going to have to get creative now. So we'll be back with some type of fun.
Well, I'll come up with some other facts about vegetables or
certainly.
fruits or animals or
the
something.
Asylum is your home for vegetable facts right here on the interwebs. So.
Maybe something on your favorite vegetable, the squash.
Squash. Ugh, I don't even know what that is. But thanks so much for joining us. Check it out, fulltimefantasy.com, at fulltimefantasy, asylumfootball.com, at asylumfootball on Twitter, asylumfootball@gmail.com next time. Until then, thank God it's over. We'll see you.
Take care.